What's going on, guys? Before I have even gained an audience, I have succumbed to react content. Um, I look so scary in the corner. I need to get a new setup, but it's okay. Uh, I tried. Okay, I'm actually gonna turn that off. Hold on. Okay. Um, I have this. I had this playlist called videos to react to with a single video inside of it that I put in. I made this playlist forever ago. I don't even know how long ago I put it in, but I never got around to doing it. So it's probably been more than a year. I don't know why I wanted to react to this, but I'm gonna. So we're gonna see what this is all about. Let's just jump straight into it. That's really loud.
Hi, this is Keith Williams. Welcome to 5 Watt World. We're interested in helping you get the most music from the least gear. Building a small collection of guitars is really satisfying and fun, but the experience of owning each guitar is not the same. Some are great guitars, but are not all fun and games to own. So in this video, I'm going to look at 5 great types of guitars that sort of suck.
Okay, so I think I'm kind of remembering why I wanted to react to this. And that's because I think I was pissed off at how expensive the guitars were. Let's see if
to own. To be clear, this video is my
Yes, I will be pausing a lot.
opinion. I'll do my best to give logical reasons why these guitars are in these categories. I'm basing this on dozens, maybe hundreds of guitars I've owned, but also from interacting with thousands of members of 5 Watt World over the years.
Okay.
Now these guitars may well work for some players. Everyone's experience is different, and if you love the guitars in one of these categories, I get it. And I might even envy you a little
Wrong. I'm just
bit. But by and large, I just don't think they
have
work
nothing
for
to say.
most players. Follow your heart, but hang out and listen to my reasoning. Don't get mad if we disagree. My opinion isn't more important than yours.
What?
It's just mine. And this is all in good fun. Cool?
True.
Okay, then let's get into the 5 great guitars that suck
Thumbs up.
to own. If you enjoy our videos, make sure to subscribe or grab a
It's so fucking stupid.
t-shirt, hoodie, or a Stomp preset pack to support what
buy
we
this
do.
guy's stuff, I
And to
guess.
become a bigger part of 5 Watt World, sign up for the Friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. There's a friend level to suit any budget. The links are in the description.
Could probably.
Let's do these as a
Listen to it.
countdown.
That's okay.
So number 5, vintage.
Vintage guitars, huh? Oh wow.
The first category is one where I feel most of us probably aspire to own one day, and that's a vintage guitar.
I hate Les Pauls. Not because they aren't great guitars to play, but they're actually great to play. I think they are the ugliest guitars of all time. They're so ugly looking, they're so basic looking, and it just really pisses me off. They do actually play really nice, which does piss me off. It pisses me off how much, but I just don't like how much people like it, really. So maybe that's just me being a contrarian idiot. But the truth is, I really just can't stand Les Pauls. They play fine. It's really not my ideal guitar to play in general. But also, anyway, let's see what he has to say about vintage guitars.
In real estate, they like to say of land that they aren't making any more of it. Well, they aren't building any more 1960 Stratocasters either. Any number of players that I know buy the guitars they always wanted when they were in high school, now that they are at a place in their lives where they can afford them. Would I love to own my own birth year guitar and say a 1960 Esquire? Well, yeah. The simplicity of collecting birth year vintage guitars for a middle-aged guy is pretty clear. But the desire to own a vintage guitar has very little to do with the realities of acquiring or owning one. First, you have to educate yourself about the type of vintage guitar that you're interested in. Like learning about fine wine, there's just too much knowledge to learn all the different categories. You might think that with all these history videos I've made, I'd be confident in going vintage shopping. In fact, it's more a case of I know enough to know how much I still don't know.
Okay.
It can take a lifetime of gathering knowledge about vintage guitars. Even then, you'll likely have to specialize based on your tastes, so you likely won't be able to learn enough to go it on your own. You're going to have to choose a dealer. You're going to need to decide who to trust. In vintage watch collecting, there's a saying that you buy the dealer, not the watch, which is a clear way of saying that you need to decide who you can trust to shepherd you through your vintage buying experience. Guitars are the same. You're going to need someone that can help you evaluate the pros and cons of a specific guitar that may well have been played for over 50 years.
So I really don't understand this. I don't really understand the obsession with wanting a vintage guitar. I have personally, I mean, my experience is playing like a vintage guitar at like a Guitar Center, right? They have like the special room you go into, and it has like something like a 20,000. It's not 20,000. Maybe it is actually. I can't remember. Like really just insanely expensive guitars that are vintage. And to me, I personally just don't see the appeal. Um, to me, it's like I don't see how it sounds any different from a more high-end model that you can get for maybe like 5,000, which is still kind of insane, but it's a higher end model. Um, just one that's modern. I don't really understand wanting a vintage guitar specifically because I feel like um it's one of those things where it's like people more get it as an investment to not play to me, which is really ridiculous. I want to see if this guy is going to talk about um not wanting to play them, which I think if you're buying an instrument just to not play it, that's really really stupid. That's like what they sold like Kurt Cobain's guitar that he used for the Nirvana Unplugged, and the guy who has that probably doesn't even play it, which is really stupid. Um, but anyway, let's see what he has
Are
to
the
say.
frets original? The tuners? The pickups? Heck, the pickup covers. All these things
Right.
affect not just what you should pay, but it impacts what you're actually paying for.
It's true.
In my experience, the number of dealers that can do this dependably is very small. In the US, you might be able to count them onto your two hands, maybe one hand if it's a very specific type of guitar. As you might expect, if you're buying through a dealer whose knowledge you can trust, you'll likely have to pay a bit more because you'll
Hmm.
know what you're getting. But that extra bit you're paying can be seen as insurance that you're getting, as the Brits like to say, what's advertised on the tin. And like going to an amusement park, the cost of admission is only a small portion of the cost of the experience. It's very common that once you find your dream vintage guitar, it will need work to make it playable for your style. It might need a fret job, you might need to have a new nut cut, or swap out the tuners that are failing. Like dependable dealers, the number of people that are qualified to work on vintage guitars without negatively impacting their value is very small.
See, this is why vintage guitar collecting is probably relegated to people that, like this guy is saying, that have a lot of money, pretty much, and they don't even really play the guitars. Maybe some people do. Maybe some people do get them fixed up and stuff like that. But that's usually like famous musicians that make a lot of money and stuff like that. So to me, um, I don't know. I personally, there's never been a guitar that I have wanted that has been more than like $2,000. And the only reason the guitar I wanted was about $2,000 was because it was a classical guitar. It was a Taylor that I really wanted, and it was very well made and it plays extremely well, just the classical style. And it's a really nice guitar. But I personally think no guitar is worth paying over $2,000 for. No standard, just regular 6 string guitar. It's got to have something special about it. It's got to be handcrafted. It's got to be unique, unique enough in a way. And it just, I mean, I feel like the state of guitars currently, um, although buying stuff that was made in the factory, is not really ideal. It's not always ethical, especially if it's like outsourced to, like Taiwan or Indonesia or China or something like that. Getting like outsourced guitars like that, it's not always the most ethical option, but you can get a lot of guitars that play really well, that don't need a lot of work on them for like $500, and that's still a lot for some people, right? It is a lot. It's a lot of money, but I feel like if you're going to pay that much for any instrument in general, it has to be worth it and it has to be unique. And I think going vintage doesn't really hit the unique factor enough. Just because it's old doesn't necessarily mean, to me at least, that it would be worth putting that much time and effort into getting. It seems like you do have to just know a lot of people to be able to get your hands on that stuff in the first place. I feel like it's sort of just a thing where it's like a guitar that a famous person played. Excuse the mouth sounds. Sorry. Like I don't know, like playing Johnny Winter's Thunderbird or something like that. It's really it's all it is novelty. Oh, a famous guy played this guitar, or maybe it kind of has a custom look, but it still kind of just looks like a regular ass electric guitar, and it's got regular ass pickups in it. There's like some of this stuff I definitely feel like is a scam when they're selling. I see some regular 6 string electric guitars going for upwards of $10,000, 15,000, 20,000, and to me, I play them. I don't see what's special about it. I just don't. If I'm gonna get a really expensive instrument, I want it to be something maybe like a double bass. A double bass, maybe upwards of like $15,000. I can see myself financing and buying for myself. I could see myself doing that. Now, is that a really insane purchase? Like, I definitely couldn't afford to do that right now. But you know, if I was gonna do something like that, I definitely wouldn't put it into a guitar because guitars are very they don't there are plenty of cheap guitars that play amazingly and sound amazing. And really once you get past a certain price point, it seems like most of the time you're just paying for a label because there's a limit to how good pickups can get and how good that stuff can sound and how well intonated an instrument can be in general. So I feel like that's just kind of a useless endeavor in my opinion. I feel like going out of your way to go through all this trouble just to get a decent vintage guitar only to have to do more work on it. Um to me doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I get that some people are passionate about it, but I personally uh could never see myself being that passionate about just a standard electric guitar just because it is vintage. As much as it would be cool to have, I prefer to buy um just an instrument and make it vintage myself by playing it a lot. That's why I still have my Fender FA 125 that I got for probably $150. My parents got that for me. I still have that thing. It's like 10 years old now. Um it's really beat up, kind of sounds like shit and it can't even hold steel strings on it anymore. But anyway, that's a side tangent.
My good friend Jeff McErlane owns a few very nice vintage guitars, and when I asked him how many people he knew that he'd let work on, say, his 64 Strat, he told me 4.
See, I will admit it does look really nice, but like, how much did this guy pay for this? How much did he pay for it? And how much of this, this tone is like replicatable, right? Stuff I do get paying for is like amps and stuff like that. Amps and audio interface equipment, that stuff makes sense. I have $1,000 Claret 8 plus, 8 pre. I mean, that's my audio interface that I have, and it is a fantastic audio interface. It's made by Focusrite, but it's their high end, their Claret, and I got it. I paid it for it on the credit card, and then I paid it off forever ago. It really is. It's such a fantastic audio interface, and that stuff. There are other things that bring out the tone that you can get that it makes sense to pay that much for. Also, it has 8 preamps on it. That's why it's called 8 pre. And that's also why it's probably like $1,000 is because of that. There's a lot of technology in this, and I think some of it's analog, but yeah, there when you're getting stuff that has a clear difference in sound, that clearly sounds better, it makes sense, but only up to a certain point. I wouldn't pay more than $1,000 for this thing. And when it comes to an amp and that stuff, you gotta buy it. You gotta save up for that stuff, and it takes a long time. And to me, it's not only an investment of your money, but it's an investment of your time as well, trying to get the money to save up for that in the first place. And to me, while that guitar does look really nice, it's just one of those things where I don't want a guitar that is too good to play, often. I want a guitar that I can just play all the time, that I can just pick up, I can get it beat up, you know. And even then, if I did get my hands on an instrument like that, it's definitely going to get a few knocks on like the top of my door frame or the side of my door frame, or maybe I'll be carrying it on my back and then it drops a little bit on the floor or something like that. That's like so, and that's just how I am with my instruments. I have a lot of nice instruments that have like stickers on them, and that would probably piss a lot of people off too. So that's just something I personally don't really care about if it doesn't affect the sound of the instrument, because that's a few nicks on your guitar isn't going to ruin it. It doesn't need to. And that's what I don't get about like vintage cars too, is that people spend so much time just trying to make them look perfect that it's like, well, I can only take this out for special occasions. What's even really the point? It just seems kind of like, I don't know, just needless consumerism. It's a really expensive decoration, essentially. And obviously, the stuff is brought out sometimes. Maybe this guy does play this every single day, but still, to me personally, that's not really worth it.
Now, Jeff lives in New York City, and there was only 3 people there in the greater New York metro area that he would trust. So like buying the dealer, you're also buying the repairman. And if you don't have access to, say, Matt at 30th Street Guitars, there very well might not be anyone within driving distance that you can trust to work on that vintage guitar that you spent endless time and likely a lot of money acquiring. And all that sort of sucks.
Yeah, because this is like what I am like with cars. I want a car that I can work on myself. And that's the problem with a lot of modern cars. There's a lot of modern cars you can't work on yourself. A lot of like 2024, 2025 models, like electric cars too. You gotta have a specialist work on that. That's like, I'm not just paying for the car, I'm paying for the mechanics and the specialists that need to work on that car. And I'm not gonna get a car that I cannot work on myself, just like I'm not gonna get a guitar that I'm too afraid to work on by myself. So that's just personally, yeah, I don't see the point in that.
Number 4, guitars that are cool on stage but just sort of don't work otherwise. In the same conversation with Jeff, I asked what guitars fell into this category for him, and he didn't hesitate and said a Flying V, or a Firebird, or an Explorer for that matter. And each of these guitars sort of sucks to own for a couple of reasons. First, I think most of us would want to buy one because they're just so badass looking. You put one of these on, you're going to look like a rock star.
I'm not a personal. I've never been a fan of the Flying V. I don't understand. But then again, like playing on stage is a totally different thing. I guess if you're putting on a performance for people, or you just want a guitar that looks really cool, because that does look cool. But I'm personally not gonna get a guitar that looks like that unless it sounds exceptional, and I will be playing it all the time. I'm not gonna get a guitar that's just cool for the stage, or that just looks cool, because again, then it just essentially turns into a decoration, and what's the point of even getting it in the first place? That's just frivolous and almost pointless. Sorry, my phone's going off. Just getting emails.
But when you come to the hard reality of the size of the case that can hold a guitar like this, well, you might have set out to look like a rock star, but only end up feeling like a roadie. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But maybe for you, schlepping around that folding table-style case is worth it because it just looks so cool. But if we're honest, most of our guitar heroes that played these guitars kept them in a guitar locker that the road crew rolls into and out of a semi when they get to the gig. Further, each of these guitars plays very differently sitting down.
This is just like a difference in culture of like a difference in the culture of playing guitar and stuff like that. Because I'm not. I played one single live show, right? And it was just at a local place. It was really cool. It was a really fun experience. But I cannot imagine making that my career and trying to get that. Like I definitely do want to do it, but I'm not. Well, that's just crazy to me. But then again, that's like not a thing that happens very often, is people being rock stars like that. Like that's insane to me. Having that many guitars and stuff like that, just they're really like, I'm only gonna get different types of guitars if it's different. I'm not gonna get different types of electric guitars unless it is distinct enough that I feel like it's worth it. Like my only electric guitar that I have is my Fender, my Squier Strat. It's really good. I got it for like $100. It was so cheap. It was literally, I think it was literally $100, and it sounds great. I got it right there. It sounds a lot better when you EQ it, but it's got some flat wounds on it too. And that's like, I don't feel like I need another electric guitar because I can just make it work in different scenarios. And to me, like, I can get different tones just, I don't need to buy an entirely new guitar just for different pickups, just because humbuckers sound different than whatever pickups are on my electric guitar. And the same thing with like, you know, because I only got, it's a Takamine. Is it Takamine? Takamine? I'm just gonna say Takamine. I apologize. I know it's Japanese, but I just don't like. If I'm gonna butcher it, I might as well just say it completely wrong. But I have a Takamine, right? Really nice acoustic dreadnought. It's really big. It projects very well. It's got really nice aged strings on it. I really like the sound of dead strings. But and it sounds fantastic when you play with the slide. But the only reason I got that is because my Fender, my FA 125, and I got them for about the same price, which is crazy. My FA 125, like I was saying before, I broke the neck on it. It can't hold tension with steel strings. It just completely bows the neck. So I had to put ball end nylon strings on it to play it. So it's like a sort of nylon guitar, but you know, it's a different use case. And I'm not going to get another acoustic dreadnought because I already have an acoustic dreadnought. I don't need another one because that's a lot of stuff to haul around. You got to have space for that kind of stuff if you're going to do that. And you got to have the income for that. I don't really have, technically I do kind of have the means to buy like a bunch of really cheap guitars, but like that's frivolous and that's pointless, I might as well relegate it to like, okay, I want an electric bass, and the only other reason I would ever get another bass instrument is if I wanted an acoustic bass guitar, because I already have a double bass. But if I wanted an acoustic bass guitar, I would get that, but I'm not going to get another electric bass, unless, of course, like that one breaks. It's like on the way out. Same thing with the banjo. I'm not going to get another banjo, another regular open back banjo. If I'm going to get a different banjo, it's got to be different. It's not going to be just like the same type of banjo, but just made by someone else, So I'm not going to do that. If I wanted a different banjo, I would get a gourd banjo or, a banjo with nylon strings. But even then, I might just get a nylon string conversion and just use that for a while. I feel like if you're going to get different kinds of instruments, you might as well just change the instrument that you already got if you want to make different adjustments to it. If you bought yourself a nice guitar and you want it to sound different, just buy some different strings for it. Maybe work on it yourself and add different pickups if you want to. There are people that can do that stuff, or have someone else add different pickups for you. Do stuff like that instead of buying a whole new instrument. Just because for me, it's like, again, I don't want to have my room filled with 40 of the same instrument. I'd rather have 40 different sort of similar instruments. Because again, I do have a lot of guitars because I have a 12 string. Oh yeah, wait, I do have my Ibanez, but that's different, The Ibanez is really nice. I have an Ibanez acoustic that I really like, but that one might be used for live shows because it's a bit easier to play than the Takamine. But again, it's like there has to be a stopping point with that kind of stuff. I'm really only going to get, like, I would only get another electric guitar if I found something that really stood out to me. But again, it's like it has to really stand out. It has to really be different. It has to be different enough, that it would warrant me getting it in the first place. So, yeah.
Versus standing up. A V really doesn't want to be played sitting down unless you've mastered your Randy Rhoads classical guitar influence between the legs position. Standing up with a V is actually very ergonomic, and really, does anything look cooler? I've always thought that the Firebird is absolutely one of the coolest designs ever. I mean,
okay, on the note of playing guitars in that classical position, of having it in between your legs like that, I feel like that's the most comfortable way to play guitar. I personally don't get resting this part, if you can see that, like on your leg. To me, I don't really like doing that. I always keep it. I always try and do that. Or I'll do it like, hold on, how will I do it? I'll usually cross my leg and keep it like that. Well, it would help if there you go. That's how I like doing it. I feel like it's comfortable doing this if you're sitting down sometimes, but I mean, especially if you have a big instrument too, like a big ass guitar, it makes more sense to have it between the legs, but not always, you know. I just do it with a lot of my instruments. Anyway, this guy was talking about Firebird.
This guitar was drawn by a car designer from the 1950s, and it looks like it. Jeff tells me that his recently acquired Gibson US Firebird is very comfortable to play sitting down, as are the Explorers that I've played. But Firebirds feel very different standing up to play, and it's an adjustment to switch from, say, a Les Paul to a Firebird and back, again on a gig. The neck is just kind of way out there. Maybe that's why Bonamassa's Bonabird was born. Great.
See, like I think it's crazy to play, like, to get another guitar. Like, again, as I was saying before, I would only get a different electric guitar from my Squire Strat, maybe if I wanted something with humbuckers on it. Like, that would be a good example. If I found a guitar with humbuckers on it, because that has a totally different sound. You can use it in different contexts. But even then, if I can just, you know, make adjustments to, like, the EQ, use different effects on the guitar to make it sound different, why get a different one, you know? And that's like, if I am going to get another electric guitar, for example, I'm going to get rid of the Squire Strat, and I'm going to replace that one. And then I'm going to use that one electric guitar for everything.
Headstock, but plays like a Les Paul. And an Explorer, the big bow tie of the guitar world, they're very comfortable sitting down or standing. So maybe that's just the ungodly large case issue. But honestly, if you can ignore the size of the case, then you just have to deal with the chance that you might bump said case against a door jamb, only to hear the headstock snap off inside. And that's a sound, once you hear it, that will never quite leave your dreams. Number 3, small brands and custom guitars. First, let me say that I love working with small builders, and to paraphrase an always uncomfortable expression, some of my best friends are custom guitar builders. But one of the realities of dealing with a small brand or a one-man shop is that everything has to go back through that person. Likely their customer service operation is small, or it's just that builder on the phone. This is a good news, bad news thing. It's great to get the answers directly from the source, but you're also likely pulling the builder away from building someone else's waitlist guitar, or even your next guitar. The better the builder, the longer you'll wait, and in general, the harder they are to reach. A really tough good news, bad news scenario.
See, again, that's another thing. I'm not, like, if I'm getting an instrument, even if it is with a custom builder, I'm going to work on it myself. You know, I'm going to do that stuff. I guess maybe not, you know, when it comes to some stuff, but, like, if you have a custom guitar, like, it would be crazy to get something that you couldn't take to, like, a guitar repair shop and be like, hey, can you adjust the truss rod on this? If you're not comfortable doing a truss rod adjustment yourself. You know, that to me is crazy. It depends on, I guess, how custom the instrument is, you know, and what you're doing with the instrument. If you're taking it out a lot, if you're taking out an instrument outside and playing it in gigs, or maybe you're busking or something like that, like, yeah, your guitar is going to get fucked up, but that's just how it happens. But that's with, like, yeah, if I'm getting an instrument and something's wrong with it, I'm going to try and work on it myself.
Along those same lines, warranties with very small or new companies often
crazy.
have sort of exaggerated timelines. The trick to a warranty is knowing that the company will be there when or if you ever need it. Sadly, in the world of startups and individual builders, this is far from assured. And even if they are still around, you often will need to go back to the source for the work. Having said that, my experience with the Parker guitars, there was a level of engineering there that made them incredibly easy for anyone with a mechanical mind to work on. So like everything else on this list, the real answer always includes, that depends on what works for you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, always get a guitar that you can work on yourself. Same thing with a car. It's like, it just saves you so much money, and all it costs is your time. And you're wasting your time on a lot of other stuff anyway. So
I reached out to TrueFire to be my sponsor because I've used them for years, with over 2 months to enhance 35. Or I really like to support 5 in making this video. Okay, we're coming into the home stretch.
Sorry for skipping that.
Number 2, guitars that you can't do basic service on yourself.
Yes.
You know, I hesitated to put this on the list because maybe I'm just more ham-fisted than most of you. But any guitar where I can't do a basic setup myself, or at least tweak it to my playing specs when I get to the gig.
So that's literally like all of the guitars he was talking about, pretty much. So, that came across a lot more rude than I wanted to. But yeah, pretty much with anything he was talking about, those are all guitars that are really hard to do basic setups on yourselves. Like, I don't see the point in getting a guitar like that maybe if you think it's particularly exceptional, but then again, sometimes you don't figure out that kind of stuff until after you already buy the instrument, which is why it's important to do research and stuff like that. But yeah, but honestly, I almost never have to make adjustments on any of my instruments. Very, very few of my instruments, but also a lot of them are kind of new. Like, a lot of them are like 4 or 5 years old, but the guitar I've worked on the most, is probably my Fender, my FA-125. I did a lot of work on that thing. Had to change out tuners and stuff like that, really basic stuff. Never did a truss rod adjustment on it, until the neck completely broke off. But yeah, I really, most of the time I don't really even need to work on guitars by myself. But when I do, it's really a simple process. So, and I'm not gonna get a guitar that I can't do that on.
It sucks to own. I've said here before that I'm not a Strat guy, and likely this is in no small part to my love-hate relationship with the vibrato. There's nothing I like more than a...
See, I don't have a Strat with a vibrato, but maybe he's talking about like the higher end models. Yeah, because I love my Stratocaster. Does it have... Oh, you can put a vibrato on it. It has a little thing for it. Wow.
Small wobble of the vibrato arm at the end of a phrase. But I've never been able to set up a Strat myself to anywhere near the level of my local tech. Too many moving parts. Tune up, adjust the claw, tune again, set the floating height. Yeah, not in my wheelhouse. So Strats always come to mind in this category for me. And along those lines, any guitar where I have to remove the neck to tweak the truss rod is sort of also on my list.
I agree.
I play with a very low action. I've always had...
Having to take off the entire neck, terrible design issue. Never buy a guitar where you have to take off the entire neck. Always check for easy access to truss rod. Always check for that kind of stuff when you're buying a guitar, because that is absolutely, even then, in my case, I usually, if I need a truss rod adjustment, I'm going to take it to my local guitar center, because I'm comfortable having, the repair guy over there just work on that, so, because I don't really I am notorious for stripping out nuts and bolts and stuff like that. So I usually take it to someone if I'm going to do something like that. Sometimes I've kind of gotten a bit more comfortable with it, but I honestly don't mind taking it out myself. But even though I was saying before, oh, don't get a guitar that you won't work on yourself, and I'm saying I'm taking it to a guy, I still can work on it myself technically. I just choose not to, and it's not really inconvenient. And I've only had to do it once, and then I just learned how to do it myself. So now most of the time, if I need a neck adjustment, I'm fine doing it myself.
A light touch on the guitar, so having the string height just right is really important to me. Furthermore, I don't see this becoming less important as my hands continue to get older. Now, my Fender-style guitar-loving friends, like John Cordy and Jeff McErlane, don't seem to be put off by loosening the neck and giving it a turn. But they both have been playing that type of guitar predominantly for many years. I'm glad for them, but I'm not them, if you know what I mean. I'm much more likely to go for a guitar where I can tweak the neck without pulling the neck off the guitar. Once you get more than a few guitars, if like me, you live in a part of the world where the humidity and temperatures swing wildly through the year, you might be looking at a couple of trips to the tech for each guitar you're playing each year. It gets expensive in both time and dollars. And more importantly, as it's hinted at already, if you find yourself grabbing that old favorite guitar and running off to a jam or worse to a gig without having opened up the case and checked the setup, you might find yourself at the gig far from any tech help on your own. And no matter how great the guitar is, if it's set up badly for you, it's...
See, and this is something that I personally just cannot relate to, because, again, I've only done one real gig, and most of it I just used backing tracks from songs that I had already made, and I only played a few acoustic songs on it, so this wasn't really an issue for me. So I guess I have a hard time grasping that, if that makes any sense. Because most of my experience taking my guitar outside was busking. So, and then again, it was always just playable for me. I just played it however it was, and I never really. So that's just how I am personally.
Sort of sucks to own in that minute. So do your training, or call the herd to those you know you can do basic work on yourself. And number one, and maybe most importantly, guitars that are too nice to play. This might
Okay, so basically like buying vintage guitars. I feel like you could have kept this a little shorter, although it doesn't really matter because that's basically like when he was talking about vintage guitars. I feel like most of the time with a vintage guitar, a lot of it's too nice to play, I guess, if that makes any sense. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But it does feel a little redundant because that's kind of the issue with what I was saying before about the vintage guitars.
will overlap with the vintage issue, though it's why a lot of guys
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Mister whatever your name was from 5 Watt Guitars. I just sounded like a total asshole.
love relic guitars, I think. They know they're not going to be the one to put the first ding in the finish. But more than the fear of scratches is the fear of putting any wear on the guitar at all. When I see an ad for a guitar that says it was bought and never left its case, I just shake my head and wonder at why they owned the guitar in the first place. I mean, when does it stop being a guitar and just become a paperweight? Another
Yes.
version of this is owning a guitar that's
100%
too
agree.
valuable to play. It might be the aforementioned fear of dings, but it also might be fear of having the guitar stolen. Whether this is vintage, a high-end custom
Fear of dings is the dumbest thing ever. I don't get it. I don't get why people care about like scratches on their car and stuff like that. Scratches on their guitars too. To me, that's always been silly. It's always like, well, whatever. If it still works, it's fine. If the car still runs, who cares if it's scratched up? If the guitar still plays, who cares if you ding it a little bit? You know, it's just like that's never really made sense to me.
shop or a custom-built guitar that can't be replaced. If it's collecting dust sitting in its case, is it really a guitar? And I'm guilty of this myself. I currently own a pair of beautiful Collins guitars that I love playing at home. Easily two of the nicest guitars I've ever been able to afford. But if I was heading out to a gig, I'd likely grab one of my used PRS Miras. They aren't inexpensive guitars, but
It's fine. It's fine to have a guitar that you only play at home. That's fine. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna take my I'm personally not gonna take. Well, actually, I would take most of these out, like all of these instruments, really outside. Maybe not my double bass, but even then, my double bass is kind of dinged up a little bit. So, yeah, no, I don't really understand like having a guitar that's too good to take out and play.
I bought each of them
I don't think
used,
about
and they
it.
weren't pristine when they arrived here, and I've been playing them ever since. If you own a thing that was built to be used and you're afraid to use it, I'd go so far as to say afraid to enjoy it. Well, this starts to feel like a version of you don't own the guitar owns you. And it's important to remember that this is something in our own head, a line that we get to draw. There's a guy that follows the channel whose Instagram feed is named Gig with Vintage. Chris's opinion is that all guitars exist to be played. Now, I don't imagine he leaves his 52 Les Paul alone on the stage between sets, but he also doesn't leave it at home and go after the gig with a Tokai Love Rock so he can leave his 52 at home. Chris made his decision about this a while ago, and I love that he reminds us that we get to decide as well. Maybe I need an attitude adjustment to take that Collins City Limits out to a blues jam. And finally, there's someone that's afraid to play their guitar because they've gotten into too much guitar. You've stretched your budget and bought a guitar that maybe was your holy grail, but it's taken on an identity of its own, and it ends up living in its case out of fear that you're going to erode its value. You know the expression,
See, that's so dumb. That's like it's just late stage capitalism, man. I hate to be that guy, but it really is just late stage capitalism. It's like the same thing. I mean, this guy's definitely going to talk about houses. He's bringing up houses. I don't get buying a house as an investment. I don't want to buy a house as an investment. I want a place to live. Okay. Maybe that makes me stupid, but I'm not going to buy something as an investment unless it's an investment in the sense. That's why I have so many instruments, you know. That those are an investment in the way that it's an investment in my musical ability, not a financial investment, you know. And that's an investment in my versatility as an artist rather than a financial investment. I'm never going to buy an instrument for a financial investment. It's ridiculous.
house poor, where someone ends up buying a house where the payment is crushing them each month? Owning a guitar that's just too expensive for your budget is much the same thing. You can become guitar poor. If you change the sort of groceries you're buying to either save for or make a credit card payment for that Grail guitar, then it's probably time to reevaluate what it is about the hobby that took you down this road. Buying too much guitar gets in the way of your enjoyment.
True.
In general, I try to
agree.
own guitars that I wouldn't hesitate to take to a blues jam or a local bar or a backyard barbecue. Guitars are tools, and they are going to develop a patina of use. That's how it's supposed to work. If they get used, they're going to show some of their mileage. One of my favorite examples of this is Dan Steinhardt from That Pedal Show's Red Custom Shop Telecaster. If you've followed the show, as I have from the beginning, you've watched that guitar going from being pretty clean to its present-day, video-played and gigged condition. If he'd kept it absolutely pristine, not used it at all those times, then I'm sure it wouldn't give him the same satisfaction as it does in its worn and weathered state. I'll bet that Dan looks at all that wear with the knowing satisfaction of a guitar's life well lived. And that certainly can't suck. That's my take on the guitars that suck to own. Agree or not, remember, that's cool. I'm just thinking out loud here. You might disagree. Heck, I might be wrong, but I always encourage us to step back and look critically at the way we approach this wonderful hobby of music and guitars. If you agree or disagree, put it down in the comments. But remember, be nice. If you can think of other examples of great guitars that suck to own, put it down.
Okay. I think that's about it. It's just the outro. Yeah, check out 5 Watt World. Or 5 Watt Music? What? Oh, whoa, God. Yep, 5 Watt World. It's from the last video. Yeah, check out 5 Watt World. Seems like a pretty cool guy. I might even check out some of his stuff myself, because I always do like exploring more about, my interests, and my main interest is really music. I think this guy put down, I know I was saying before some of the stuff he said was redundant, but I actually take that back. I don't think it was redundant at all, bringing up those last two, because I think, but I agree with most of the stuff this guy said, but it also seems like he's in a very different world of music. It's very different being a bedroom musician, than just being, a gigging musician. This is something that I've been saying for a long time, is that there are many different types of musicians. There's not just one type of musician. There's different types of, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different culture. There's things and nuances that need to be learned about it. So that's why maybe some of the stuff that he says I don't quite understand. But yeah, I feel like it was a pretty good video. Wow, 42 minutes. That's crazy. How long? I turned a 16-minute video into a 42-minute one. But anyway, yeah, check out 5 Watt World. Which it does feel kind of redundant to say, because I only have like 20 subscribers, but you know what? Whatever. I want to ethically react to stuff, but yeah, if you want to see more reactions to videos, maybe leave them down in the comments below. As always, I will try and do credits and stuff like that. So, I'm not just straight up stealing people's content. But React content, it's just kind of slop. It's just kind of how it works. So, anyway, yeah. See ya.